The message came at 2:17 a.m. Don't come home. Your sister doesn't want you there. No explanation, no goodbye, just those 8 words glowing on my phone in the dark, like a warning sign I was never meant to see. I stared at it for a long time, waiting for the follow-up, waiting for my mom to say it was a mistake, waiting for my dad to take the phone and call me himself, but nothing came. The silence after that message was louder than any argument we'd ever had. I was 22, living 3 states away, working 2 jobs, telling everyone I was doing fine. And in one sentence, I was reminded that fine was a lie I told myself so I wouldn't have to admit how replaceable I'd become. That night changed everything. Growing up, our house looked perfect from the outside. White porch railing, neatly trimmed lawn, American flag that my dad folded every 4th of July like it was a ritual. Inside, though, everything revolved around one person, my older sister, Emily. Emily was golden, straight-A student, chair captain, the one teachers praised and neighbors admired. When she spoke, my parents listened. When I spoke, they corrected. I learned early how to stay quiet. When I was 17, I got accepted into a small college out of state. It wasn't Ivy League, it wasn't impressive, but it was mine. I remember holding the acceptance letter, my hands shaking, my heart pounding like I'd finally been chosen for something. Emily glanced at it and smiled, thin and polite. "That's nice," she said. My parents nodded, distracted. "So when are you leaving?" my mom asked, already sounding relieved. I left 3 weeks after graduation. At first, they called, then the call slowed, then holidays passed with excuses. Emily was busy, money was tight, it wasn't a good time. I told myself it was normal. People grow up, families change. But then came that message. Don't come home. Your sister doesn't want you there. I tried calling, straight to voicemail. I texted back, what does that mean? Did I do something wrong? No response. For months, I carried that sentence with me. I replayed every childhood memory, every argument, every moment I might have offended her without realizing it. I blamed myself because that's what I'd been trained to do. Years passed. I built a life anyway, a quiet one. I worked hard, I stayed invisible, and eventually I met someone who saw me, really saw me, without needing me to shrink. When he proposed, I cried harder than I expected. Planning the wedding forced me to face the question I'd been avoiding for years. Do I invite my family? Against my better judgment, I did. My parents replied quickly, "Of course we'll be there." Emily didn't respond at all. I told myself it didn't matter. I told myself the day was about love, not old wounds. I told myself I was stronger now. I was wrong. Because the morning of my wedding, as I stood in my dress, phone buzzing in my hands, I realized some messages don't just reopen wounds, they explain them. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments about which country you're watching this video from. Enjoy the story. The message came just as the makeup artist stepped back and said, "Okay, don't move." My phone buzzed against the table, soft but sharp in the quiet room. I wasn't expecting anything. Most people were already downstairs, guests arriving, music testing, chairs being adjusted. This moment was supposed to be calm, private, safe. I stared at it for a long time, waiting for the follow-up, waiting for my mom to say it was a mistake, waiting for my dad to take the phone and call me himself. But nothing came. The silence after that message was louder than any argument we'd ever had. I was 22, living 3 states away, working 2 jobs, telling everyone I was doing fine. And in one sentence, I was reminded that fine was a lie I told myself so I wouldn't have to admit how replaceable I'd become. The message was short. "We need to talk," before the ceremony. My first instinct was to ignore it. I'd spent years learning how to survive without answers from her. But curiosity has a way of winning when fear is mixed with hope. Maybe this was her apology. Maybe this was closure. Maybe, just maybe, she wanted to fix things. I replied with one word: Where? Her response came almost immediately. Parking lot, by the old oak tree. The oak tree. Of course she chose that spot. It was the same place she used to drag me as a kid when she wanted to talk without our parents hearing. The same place where conversations never went my way. I told myself I was an adult now, that I wasn't 17 anymore, desperate for approval. I took a breath, picked up my dress slightly, and walked out. The air outside was cool, crisp. The venue was quiet at the edges, noise concentrated near the entrance. Emily stood near the tree, arms crossed, sunglasses on, dressed perfectly, as always. She looked like nothing had changed, like time had only been kind to her. "You look nice," she said, removing the sunglasses slowly. I waited. She sighed, as if I were the inconvenience. "I didn't want to do this here," she said, "but you left me no choice." That sentence hit harder than it should have. "I invited you," I replied carefully. "You didn't respond." She smiled, but it wasn't warm. Exactly. I felt something shift in my chest. "What do you want, Emily?" She looked past me, toward the venue, toward the people gathering for my wedding. "This day," she said, "isn't supposed to happen like this." I frowned. "What does that mean?" She hesitated, then said it, slowly, clearly. "Mom and Dad didn't tell you everything." I laughed once, sharp and nervous. They never do. Emily stepped closer, lowered her voice. "They didn't tell you why I told them not to let you come home all those years ago." The oak tree suddenly felt too big, too close. The air felt heavier. "Why?" I asked. She studied my face like she was searching for something to confirm a theory. "Because if you had come back," she said, "you would have ruined everything." I stared at her. I didn't even know what I'd done. "You didn't. That was the problem." Before I could ask her to explain, my phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't Emily. It was my mother. "We need to talk, now. Please don't walk down the aisle until you do." My heart dropped. I looked from my phone to my sister, whose expression told me she already knew. "You told them," I said. Emily nodded. "They were going to let it slide. I couldn't." "Let what slide?" I demanded. She leaned in, her voice barely above a whisper. "The truth." That was when I realized this wasn't about jealousy or rivalry or childhood resentment. This was about something they had hidden so carefully they were willing to erase me to protect it. And my wedding day was the last place they wanted it exposed. I didn't walk back to the bridal suite. Instead, I followed my mother down a quiet hallway behind the venue kitchen, the smell of coffee and warm bread hanging in the air like a normal morning, like nothing was wrong. My dress brushed the floor with every step, white fabric against concrete, a reminder of how carefully this day had been planned and how quickly it was unraveling. My father was already there, standing near the service door, his tie loosened, his face pale. He looked older than I remembered, smaller, like a man who'd been holding his breath for years and was finally running out of air. Mom closed the door behind us. "We didn't want this to happen today," she said immediately. I crossed my arms. "Then why did you let her do this?" My father spoke before she could answer. "We should have told you a long time ago." That sentence, again. My heart pounded so hard I could hear it in my ears. "Told me what?" They exchanged a look, the kind that carried years of private conversations, decisions made without me. My mother swallowed. "When you left for college," she said slowly, "things weren't stable." I laughed bitterly. "They were never stable." "That's not what I mean," she replied. "Your sister, Emily, was struggling." I thought of Emily by the oak tree, calm, controlled, perfect. Struggling how? My father finally met my eyes. "He wasn't accepted into the program she wanted," he said. "She blamed herself, and then she started blaming you." I felt a sharp twist in my chest. For what? For leaving, my mother said. For being the one who got out. The words didn't make sense. I shook my head. That's not a reason to cut someone off. No, my father agreed quietly, but that wasn't all. My mother reached into her purse with trembling hands and pulled out a folded envelope, yellowed at the edges. Old. This, she said, is what changed everything. I stared at it. What is it? She didn't answer. She handed it to me. Inside was a copy of a hospital report, dated 3 months after I left home. My eyes skimmed the page, struggling to focus. Words jumped out in pieces. Admitted voluntarily, severe emotional distress. Trigger, familial abandonment. I looked up slowly. This is about Emily. My mother nodded. Tears filled her eyes. She was hospitalized, she whispered, for weeks. The room felt like it was tilting. And you never told me? My father stepped forward. We were trying to protect you. No, I said sharply. You were protecting her. Silence. My mother wiped her face. She said if you came home, if you showed up and acted like nothing happened, it would destroy her. So you erased me, I said. My father looked away. And the message, I asked, the one she sent me, you let her send that? My mother's voice cracked. She said it was the only way she could breathe again. I stared at them, realization settling in like a slow, heavy weight. They hadn't chosen her because she was right. They chose her because she was louder, because her pain demanded attention, because mine stayed quiet. So why now? I asked. Why tell me today? My father hesitated. Because Emily is afraid. Of what? My mother took a shaky breath. That if you stand up there today, happy, loved, surrounded by people, someone will ask questions. What kind of questions? My father's voice dropped. Questions about why you disappeared from the family, why you were never mentioned, why your sister became the only child. I felt my throat tighten. You let people think that? My mother couldn't answer. In that moment, I understood something painful and clear. My wedding wasn't just a celebration to them, it was a risk. Because the truth they buried all those years ago was about to walk down the aisle in front of everyone who knew them, and Emily would do anything to stop that from happening. I walked away from my parents without saying another word. Not because I didn't have anything to say, but because if I opened my mouth, I knew something would break. Either me or the version of them I'd been trying to hold on to. The hallway felt longer on the way back. Every step echoed. Every breath felt borrowed. I passed staff members smiling politely, guests laughing softly, unaware that my entire history had just been laid bare like a crime scene. In the bridal suite, my reflection waited for me. White dress, steady hands, calm face. A stranger. I stared at myself and tried to reconcile who I was supposed to be in this moment. The quiet daughter who learned not to cause trouble, or the woman who had built a life without permission. My phone buzzed again. Emily, you don't have to do this. We can still stop it. I sat down slowly. Stop what? The wedding? The truth? Me? I typed back before I could overthink it. Stop what, Emily? Her reply took longer this time. You know exactly what I mean. I closed my eyes. A knock came at the door. My fiancé's voice, gentle and concerned. Hey, everything okay? I swallowed. Can you give me a few minutes? There was a pause. Then, of course. The grace in his voice almost broke me. I looked at my phone again. You erased me, I typed. You don't get to decide when I exist. The typing dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, I saved you. I laughed out loud, a short, empty sound. Saved me from what? From being seen? From being loved? From standing in my own life instead of watching it from a distance? Another message came through. If you go through with this today, Mom won't handle it. Dad either. People will ask questions. They'll dig. You don't know what you're doing. That was when it hit me. She wasn't afraid of me being happy. She was afraid of losing control of the story. For years, Emily had been the center, the fragile one, the priority, the reason decisions were made. My absence wasn't a side effect. It was a solution. I stood up. The door opened slowly, and my mother stepped in, eyes red, voice shaking. "Please," she said, "let's just get through today quietly." I turned to her. "Quietly for who?" She flinched. "You're asking me to disappear again in my own wedding dress." "That's not fair," she whispered. "No," I said calmly. "It's accurate." She reached for my hands. I let her take them. "Emily is scared," she said. "She thinks if people see how loved you are, they'll realize how wrong everything was." I held her gaze. It was wrong. Tears rolled down her cheeks. "I know." That admission came too late to comfort me. "Then this ends today," I said. Her eyes widened. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I'm done protecting lies that cost me years of my life." Before she could respond, my father appeared in the doorway. Emily stood behind him. She looked angry now, not fragile, not scared, angry. "You're really going to do this?" Emily asked. "You're going to embarrass us?" I met her eyes. "You embarrassed me when you erased me." Her jaw tightened. "This isn't about you." "It never was," I replied, "and that's the problem." The music outside shifted. The cue was coming. Guests were settling. The moment was here. Emily stepped forward. "If you walk down that aisle," she said coldly, "don't expect us to stand with you." I looked past her, toward the door, toward the future I'd chosen without any of them. Then I said the words she never expected to hear. "I don't need you to." And as I reached for the handle, I knew one thing with absolute clarity. Whatever happened next would finally be my choice, even if it tore the family apart. The doors opened slowly. Light poured in from the far end of the aisle, warm and steady, like an answer I'd been waiting for without knowing it. Conversations faded into a hush. Chairs shifted. Someone inhaled sharply. I stepped forward. With every step, the weight I'd carried for years began to loosen, not disappear, but loosen enough to breathe. I didn't look for my parents' faces. I didn't look for Emily. I kept my eyes on the one person who had never asked me to be smaller. My fiancé stood there, eyes glassy, hands trembling just lightly. When he saw me, he smiled, not the polite kind, not the proud kind, but the kind that says, "I know you, and I choose you anyway." I reached him, took his hands, grounded myself. The officiants began speaking, but I barely heard the words. My heartbeat was louder. My mind replayed every version of myself that had been silenced, sidelined, erased. And then something unexpected happened. A murmur rippled through the crowd. I glanced to the side. Emily had entered. Not quietly, not carefully. She walked down the side aisle, heels clicking, jaw tight, eyes scanning faces. My parents followed a few steps behind her, visibly shaken. People noticed. Heads turned. Whispers bloomed. This was exactly what she feared. Emily stopped a few rows back and crossed her arms, daring anyone to look away. She wanted control back. She wanted the spotlight to bend toward her again. The officiant hesitated. "Shall we?" "No," I said softly. Every sound stopped. I turned slightly, just enough to face the room. My voice didn't shake, not because I wasn't afraid, but because I was finished being afraid of them. "I know some of you are surprised," I began. "You haven't seen much of my family over the years. Some of you may have wondered why." My mother gasped quietly. My father looked down. Emily stiffened. "I won't explain everything," I continued, "because some stories are private. But I will say this. Sometimes the people who teach you about love are also the ones who teach you what it looks like when love is conditional. The room was silent. I spent years believing I was the problem, I said, that my absence made things easier, that my silence kept the peace. I met Emily's eyes then, calmly, without anger. I know now that peace built on erasing someone isn't peace at all. A few guests shifted uncomfortably. Others nodded, slowly, like something inside them recognized the truth. This day, I said, turning back toward my partner, is about choosing a future that doesn't require me to disappear. Emily took a step forward. "You're making this into something it's not," she snapped. I smiled gently. "No," I said. "I'm finally letting it be what it always was." The officiant cleared his throat, emotion thick in his voice. "Shall we continue?" I nodded. We exchanged vows that felt heavier and lighter at the same time, promises made not just to each other, but to ourselves. When we said "I do," the room exhaled. Applause followed, real applause, warm, supportive. My parents didn't clap. Emily left before the ceremony ended. I didn't stop her. Later, during the reception, my mother approached me alone. Her eyes were tired, honest in a way I hadn't seen before. "You were right. We were wrong," she said quietly. "I know," I said. "Can we fix this?" she asked. I looked around the room, at laughter, at dancing, at the life I had built without their permission. "Maybe," I said, "but not today." She accepted that, finally. That night, as I walked away hand in hand with my husband, I realized something simple and powerful. Being excluded once taught me how to survive, but choosing myself, out loud, in front of everyone, taught me how to live. And for the first time in my life, going home didn't mean going back. It meant moving forward.